So you say you're a sports card collector. Well, which type of collector are you? Happy hobby! Welcome to my Sports Card Collectors 101 series. This is a series of videos that's meant to help all sorts of collectors find their way in this awesome hobby of ours. If you are collecting sports cards on a limited budget, please subscribe because that's exactly what this channel is all about. All right, so what type of sports card collector are you? Well, what kind of question is that? I'm going to explain, I promise. I'm David Dennis and I write a card collecting column for theathletic.com. And over the past few months, my articles have been refined by what the commenters say in the comments. I've gotten to know a lot of the questions they're asking, and that's helped me build out just what type of articles I need to write. And it's also helped me build out my YouTube channel right here and helping collectors know what the new landscape is and why sports card collecting is a little different than it used to be 20, 30 years ago. So that's what this series is all about, helping new and returning collectors figure out what this hobby is all about. One thing I've noticed about collectors these days is it's just like opening a pack of cards. Sometimes you get a lot of rookies, sometimes you get some Hall of Fame veterans, and a lot of times you get people that are somewhere in the middle, the commons. That's kind of what I'm like a common. I'm a little in the middle. So the first type of collector we're talking about is the new collector. These are the people that are just now getting into the hobby. So these new collectors, they love sports. Maybe they're big fantasy players, and this is just like a nice extension from their fantasy game, and it really is the same type of hobby. You invest in players, you hope that they do well. When they do really well, you're really excited. When they do horrible, you really want to punch a wall. And that's what collecting is all about. But a lot of times these new collectors, well, they fall prey to some unscrupulous people. There's a lot of bad people out there. There's a lot of bad people in this hobby. Most of them are good, but there are a lot of bad ones. And they'll do some tricks that'll get you to spend your money when you shouldn't have, or they'll sell you something that you think is one thing, but it really isn't. And these bad guys, they really are like the lowest form of collecting prey, if you will. They prey on young collectors, on new collectors, and they prey on people that have nostalgia for a long time ago, and they'll prey on that nostalgia, and that nostalgia will sometimes cloud our judgment as to what's a good buy and what's not a good buy. The next set of collectors we're going to talk about are the investors, the sports card investors. A lot of old school collectors do not like these guys, but really, they're fantastic for the hobby because they bring a lot of money into the hobby. They bring a lot of interest in the hobby. There's a lot more cards available to purchase because these guys are in the hobby. And since a lot more money is involved, a lot of the unscrupulous people get uncovered because these guys know how to bust them. And that helps everybody. The next group we're going to talk about is a subset of the investors. This is the card flippers. They're like the day traders of Wall Street. These guys will buy cards for short-term investments with plans on selling them or flipping them as soon as they have big games or big weeks. These are prospectors. They buy cheap cards of cheap players that are expected to possibly do good. As soon as they do good, they flip them and they sell them. Again, not a bad group to have in the hobby because it makes there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot more volume available to purchase, but it's a dangerous hobby to be into if you're a prospector, because if you put out a lot of money for cards for young, unproven players and they don't turn out good, then you're stuck with a lot of commons that might not be in the league in a few years, and you're trying to figure out what to do with them. They're using them for coasters and such. They're not as good for coasters, but still. Now we get to the type of collector that's a little more like what I am. The renewed collector, I call it. This is somebody that collected a long time ago, maybe in their childhood, maybe in their teens, maybe in their early 20s before they were married and had a mortgage payment. Buying boxes back then, that wasn't as common. We were buying packs and maybe going to the card store and buying singles. We weren't buying boxes, and they didn't have blasters and megas, and we weren't buying one-of-one cards. This was a foreign thing to us. Maybe every now and then over the past couple decades, we'd buy a pack or two for nostalgia reasons. We'd see them at Target, and maybe I'll grab a couple packs of those. But for the most part, that's all been in our rearview mirror until the past couple years, when all of a sudden card collecting became a big thing again. And we were like, oh yeah, I do have a bunch of cards. That was fun. I think I'm gonna get back into it. We brought out our old collection. We found some gems that other people have appreciated as much, or maybe even more than we did. The renewed collector is still trying to figure out this current hobby, as inserts aren't the same as they used to be. Back in the day, those were the chase cards, getting Fleer rookie sensation inserts. The hologram cards, those were awesome. It's a whole different story now. And finally, old school collectors. These are guys that have been collecting all the way for the past 3 or 4 decades. They've been going at it, buying packs, buying boxes, buying singles, just making a bigger and better collection as they go. And this was all before it became a really hot asset class for investing just a couple years ago. For a lot of these collectors, graded cards, that was a luxury much more than a necessity it's become in the past few years. While old school collectors might not be fans of the new types of collectors, they definitely are happy enough because that means we've got buyers for their old school collections. So now that we've gone through all the types of different collectors that are out there, what type are you? I want to know in the comments section. Now think of which type you are and then formulate a strategy of collecting around that. For instance, a new collector, well, they should really focus their collecting on a specific sport or a specific brand or type of cards or specific players even, so that they don't go scattershot and try to collect everything at once. And if you're a card flipper, then daily or weekly production by players matters much more to you than it might to a renewed collector or old school collectors that are looking more long term. And that renewed collector, well, they might be just looking to fill some holes in that old collection of theirs while also adding some really great cards from the past few years. For instance, for myself, I love buying blasters from 2018 and 2019 on sites like Dave and Adam's Card World. They have old boxes on there we can get. We start filling in all the years that we missed. So whatever you do, enjoy the hobby, enjoy sports card collecting. It's not meant to be something that's painful and arduous. Enjoy it and have a happy hobby.